Folks, I'm Gary Mason, professional guide and nationally known outdoor sportsman, and I'm here today with Charlie Brewer Jr., and we're fishing slider grubs on Kentucky Lake. Chuck, tell me a little bit about the history of these grubs.
Well, our company's been around for like 35 years now. My dad was always an avid fisherman, and he bass fished most of his whole life, but back in the late 1970s, he started crappie fishing, and first thing he did, he talked to all his buddies, how to do crappie fishing, and they said, well, first of all, buy a lot of jigs, because you're going to break off a lot when you get in the brush. First day he went out, him and his buddy, they caught some crappie, and they did break off a lot of jigs. But that night, he's always tinkering and experimenting, so he started working with, trying to come up with a weedless configuration, and working more and more, came up with our weedless crappie slider head, and then our grub body. He worked with that and kept reducing the size of the grub down to what he saw as the average size feed that was inside these fish. When he'd clean them, he'd see what they were eating, and so basically came out with it's about 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches crappie slider grubs. Got a little vibra tail on it, gives you just a little action, doesn't overreact nature, kind of looks like a minnow just shooting straight through the water. Doesn't do a lot of this, and through thousands and thousands of hours of fishing and experimenting in all kinds of conditions, he got it down to what we'd have now today is the crappie slider grub, and we sell them all over the country and even outside the country. A lot of tournament fishermen use them here on Kentucky Lake and all across the country. So it's been real successful. There's several different ways to fish it, and we'll talk about that a little later.
Well, I noticed that you've got yours rigged up non-weedless, and then here we've got one that's rigged up on a slider head that's totally weedless.
Yeah, this is kind of like the original layout like this. We've got a special head that was designed to go with the grub, and that's the crappie slider when you put it all together. This is what my dad developed to start with, to fish down in heavy cover, right into the brush. But this size grub, this 1.5 inch crappie grub here with the vibra tail action on it, but the head was specially designed to go with the grub, and it's got kind of a scooped front here, and it's got the offset hook for Texas rigging. But with this right here, if you rig that and get the hook buried up into the plastic so it doesn't stick through, you can drop this right down into underwater structure. You can feel it crawling over the limbs, and that's a good feeling when you feel it crawling over. And as soon as it drops off the other side of that limb, that's usually when they hit it. You feel that little tick, and then you got it. But you can get in some heavy cover with this without breaking off, hardly any lures. I mean, occasionally you'll get one wedged in somewhere, but in heavy cover, this right here, it really does the trick for you.
And that's totally weedless for rigged up.
That's right. That's original crappie slider. This is like a 1/8 ounce head. Really, if it's real calm, no wind, and you get up to a tree or sunken brush or whatever, if you can get down to a lighter weight, even a 32nd, the lighter the weight, the better. It'll just tend to float. It's more buoyant, kind of float and come over the limbs just real natural. So always the lighter the better. But that's the original crappie slider. And then of course when you're in open water, you can fish it like this or put it on other type heads, for exposed hook. We've got our little flat slider head we use. We've also got some little round ball heads that are good to go with this. But there's other heads too, these minnow heads and little bullet shaped heads, and good for open water fishing.
I'm gonna lay this one right in your hand because this is the way that I like to fish it. That's with one of your ball heads. Okay. And that's not weedless. You're going to get hung up using that method. I like that method because of the places that I fish a lot of stake beds, and that ball jig will actually come around that stake when it hits it a lot of times and not get hung up. But you do get hung up occasionally with that rig. Guiding like I do, I think my people can stick the fish a little better, but I love that weedless rig, and especially when I've got some people that can really feel fish, that's a real good way to go. But there's a lot of different ways to fish a Charlie Brewer slider grub, and none of them are wrong.
Well, you just have to try to match up the way you're fishing to the conditions of the day, and try to get on a pattern of how the fish are hitting, because I always always changing, you know. That's what they call it fishing. Trying to locate the fish and get on the pattern. I'll show you how to rig this weedless head and proper way to do that. So I'm going to do that.
Okay, well I'm going to go back fishing while you're doing that.
Okay. Got my head and my grub. We're going to rig it on here. Basically, you rig this Texas style. You got the little offset in the hook, but we like to rig it with the tail turned down. So I take the hook and bury it in maybe 1/8 inch tip of the grub, and I just slide it down, and I kind of push it forward here. I don't want it to be real tight. Bury the hook into the grub like that, and it's weedless, about ready to go. Usually when I bury it in there, I like to push the hook on through a time or two on any plastic just to make it even softer on penetration, and then I back the grub up just over the tip of the hook, and then when a crappie bites that, you know, it is no problem with that coming through and penetrating and catching the fish. But you can crawl that. As long as that tip is buried into the plastic, you can crawl that over underwater structure, and works real good. And you know, back in the late 70s when this was developed, at that time is the first weedless crappie jig on the market, and still the same design that we had back at that time. We still sell these today everywhere, and been real successful with it. Okay, what I'm going to show you right here is just how to rig our crappie slider grub on just a standard regular slider head. This is our original flat slider head, and I'm going to rig it on that for open water, or fishing, you know, with the hook exposed. Basically just hold my head here and just take the hook and put it in the center of the grub, push it about halfway to maybe a little over halfway down the grub, and then just push it up on the head itself, and there it is. Try to get a little straighter right here, but basically just rig the grub like that with hook exposed, and you can swim that through the water. Now with this regular slider head being flat like that, this always runs real true in the water. It doesn't roll with you, and always the hook is always upright. And being flat too, it also has a little slower fall through the water, which sometimes triggers the fish. But why don't you show, Gary, how you rig your little head?
I've got just a regular slider head, a ball jig head. It's 1/16 ounce is the size that I love to use. And what I do is I'll take that jig head and I turn it up where the hook is straight up, and I take the slider grub, and if you'll notice on the slider grub, there's a long side and a short side of that paddle tail.
Mm-hmm.
I'll turn the short side, which is with most of the paddle away from the hook, turn the short side, and I'll put that right in the center of it, and I like to put it on there until it starts curling around the hook just a little bit. Then I'll bring it up and then just push it right up on the barb of that jig head, and there you have it, just like so.
Ready to swim through the water.
That's ready to swim through the water. Now once again, that's not weedless, but for fishing over the top of stake beds and counting down, that works very well in my type of fishing situation. And there's a lot of fishing situations out there, and like I said, there's no wrong way to fish a slider grub. If it's working for you, then by all means, use your techniques and make sure that you stick with them if they're working for you. If they're not working for you, change techniques and try other ways of fishing. But this technique works for me, and I know the weedless technique works for a lot of other people. But
I try to keep some of my rods rigged up both ways. You know, if I'm open water, I'll switch to one with open hook and swim it along. But if I get to a place where I've got some structure I can actually see or be on top of, I'll switch to my weedless and maybe use it.
Right. One thing I wanted to ask you, Chuck, and I've always been curious, and you and I fished together before, but why so many colors?
Well, a lot of different reasons. Let me get my box and get you cut me out going down. But I've got a box here with a lot of colors in it, and we may have a few more colors even other than this. We started out with just a few basic colors, which, you know, like our blacks and our white and our yellows and whatever, back several years ago, and they worked real well. But over the years, we've had mostly a lot of coming from our customers. We've had people around the country that wanted different colors for their areas. You know, certain colors maybe work better in Texas than they do in the Carolinas. So we kind of created a lot of these colors, you know, just to for our customers. We got a lot of, you know, pro-staff people out there that test lures for and colors for us, and we get feedback from them on different colors. And also myself and you, we fish a lot of different colors, and we all got our favorites. I'll show you the number one color really throughout the country for us is this June bug chartreuse tail right here. It's our number one color. Close second to that is a black and chartreuse. Not a lot of difference in them, but those are the two top colors. Maybe followed by chartreuse glitter, the white with a chartreuse tail, what we call the Tennessee shad. We've got a pearl on one side and a clear with black flake on the other. We've got the multi-glitter, which I know is one of your favorites here on this lake. And it just, you know, just different lakes and different conditions. You know, sometimes some colors are right for some lakes, and other colors are right for others. One thing I've always noticed, and had fishermen, feedback from fishermen tell me, under muddy conditions, they always want orange. I get a lot of talk about orange and under muddy conditions. So we've got orange with a pearl here, and then we've got a watermelon with a orange tail here, and a motor oil glitter with orange. And for muddy conditions, we just get a lot of fishermen that say that's what we need to use. And I know in times when it's water's clear and you got a sunshiny day, you know what I hear and I found out myself too is you're usually on the bright days use kind of bright colors. On the dark, overcast days, use the darker colors. However, like I said, going back to our number one color, which is this June bug chartreuse, it seems to work under all conditions. It doesn't matter whether it's light or dark or right, whatever. It's a good all-around color. But got a lot of colors. A lot of them I like and use myself. A lot of them that, you know, customers in different parts of the country want. We got a black with a glow tail. People like that. And nighttime, sometimes they'll take that. We've got a glow glitter. They'll charge it up with a flashlight, and, you know, so it glows and kind of, you know, fishing at nighttime, and that attracts crappie. But that's just some of my opinions on colors. But I know you're out here every day. You fish, you know, you're a professional guide, so you're on the lake a lot more than I am. But you talk about colors a little.
I'll always start out with a light color on a bright day and a dark color on a dark day. It seems like that here on Kentucky Lake, the fish can see a dark color better in the water on a dark day, and then on the bright sunshiny days, they see the light colors real well. So I'll fish your whites, your pearl glow, that type of stuff on a real bright sunshiny day. Then on an overcast day where it's partly cloudy, but a little bit of sun peeking through, I'll go to my chartreuse colors, even to a Tennessee shad. And then on the dark days, of course, as you said a while ago, June bug is my personal favorite on a dark day. But your black and chartreuse, your motor oils, avocado with glitter in it, those are the colors that I use on the dark days. So that's how I start out every day. When I'm guiding, I'll have 2 or 3 people in the boat with me, and I'll start everybody off with a different color according to what I believe the conditions are, the light conditions and the clarity, water clarity conditions. I'll start 2 or 3 people off with different colors, and then the guy that starts catching the most fish, the rest of us will put that same color on. And we try to pattern crappie here on Kentucky Lake just like you would pattern bass. You know, the bass fishermen for years have been talking about patterning fish. Well, we do the same thing with crappie, and that's how we choose the crappie slider that we're going to use. It doesn't matter whether you want to vertical fish them, whether you want to troll them, whether you want to pull them, or whether you want to cast them. They'll catch crappie for you any way you want to fish them, and that's really unique. Well, Chuck, one thing that I love to use, I use this high visibility P-line, 6-pound test. And this is a real strong abrasion resistant line made by P-line. And one thing that I believe in on crappie fishing, especially casting like I do for crappie a lot, is the high visibility line. Here's what I believe. That line comes through the water, and we know that crappie are attracted to the chartreuse color, and you know that especially as a lure manufacturer, because you manufacture a lot of lures in chartreuse colors.
That's right.
Crappie are normally attracted to chartreuse color, and so I think we've been told all of our life that we shouldn't use line that fish see. However, when it's a line that's the color that they're already attracted to, I believe they turn and see that line coming through the water, and then all of a sudden here comes the Charlie Brewer slider grub. Those fish are already looking in the direction that that slider grub is coming by. So you've cut down their strike zone and got that slider grub in their strike zone because you've already got them interested in the line color. And then that Charlie Brewer slider grub comes along and they run out and grab it. The other thing that high visibility line does for me and my customers is that it allows me on a windy day to see that line jump. A lot of times crappie fishing, as we know, they'll hit light some days, other days they hit pretty hard, but on the days they're hitting light, you may not be able to feel them in the wind. You know, you got the kind of a bow in your line. So what you want to do with this high visibility line is you want to watch that bow. You want to watch kind of your rod tip and the bow as you're reeling real slow through the water with a slider grub. When you see that bow and that line jump, set your hook, because you've got a fish. There's a lot of times when one of my customers will get a fish and won't even know it, and I'll see his line move and tell him he's got a fish on. And it just amazes them until I teach them how to do it, and then they've become better fishermen once they learn how to watch that line. But I'm constantly watching my line when I'm crappie fishing.
Well, yeah, that's critical in crappie fishing, but a lot of times they hit so light that, I mean, you can't feel anything. Just the slightest little twitch in the line or any movement at all is an indication of crappie's there. We probably lose more crappie than we catch because they'll suck it in real quick and then they'll blow it out. With a crappie, you've got to set the hook really quick with them. But I'm like you with a high visibility line, especially under a lot of the conditions. It's just so much easier to see and watch. It fits a lot of the occasions. Today though, I'm not really using the high visibility line myself. I've got using 4-pound monofilament here, and it's just a standard line I've used for my crappie fishing, also for some of my bass fishing too. But fishing this, it works real well for me, but it is a little more difficult to see. But if the conditions are right, I don't have any problem. But if we get in those real glary days, then a lot of times you need to go to the high visibility line. A little trick too, some people think, I know you think here on Kentucky Lake, that the line attracts the crappie. A lot of people think, it's opinions on that maybe it spooks them at times. But a trick you can do is, when you're using high visibility line, is to take maybe the last few feet and splice on the clear mono line. So you've got a clear leader to the lure, and then you've got your high visibility line the rest of the time. That's another style or technique. One thing with crappie fishing or any kind of fishing, you've always got to vary your techniques and experiment, because what worked one day doesn't necessarily work the next day.
That's exactly true.
They're always changing.
Yeah.
One thing on that high visibility line, I'll just fishing with my father years ago, vertical jigging, and we're dropping that line down to a certain depth. We would use a high visibility line, would count down so many feet for that lure. He'd take a magic marker and mark that line, so we knew exactly where to stop. We'd let it off and it'd go down to that place, and that's the depth we'd fish at.
Well, vertical fishing, and I tell people that that's a great idea and a great tip, because I tell people that it's very important when you're vertical fishing to remember where you just caught that last fish. In other words, the depth of water that you're in. If you catch him in 17 foot of water, more than likely those fish are suspended at that depth. And if you can go right back down to 17 foot of water, you're probably going to catch another fish. For some reason, when fish suspend, they're like us. They don't want it too hot. They don't want the water temperature too cold, but they just like to be in that comfort zone. And wherever they're suspended is where they feel comfortable about being. And when you can get right back down into their comfort zone, you're going to catch more fish. And any kind of tip like that you can use to let yourself know exactly where you were at. I know casting. We talk about casting countdown, which was a method that the bass fishermen developed, but that I use crappie fishing all the time. Because if I've got say a brush pile in 8 foot of water and it sticks up 4 foot off the bottom, and I want to be right over the top of that, I only want to count that jig down 4 seconds, because a 1/16 ounce slider grub will fall about a foot per second.
That's right.
So what I tell people is go ahead and count down, count 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, and bring that jig back real slow, and remember the count when you catch one. If you catch one when you're counting down to 1,003 or 1,005, whatever it was, then count down again that same depth and bring it back through there. Once again, you're coming right back through that crappie's comfort zone, which allows you to catch more fish. Fishing is not all about luck. Some of it does have to do with skill.
I'm about ready to go get some.
Chuck, let's go catch a fish. Folks, we'll be right back. Stick around. We got some more tips and some more fish catching.
Catching fish is fun, and Slider makes catching them a lot easier. Whether it's bass, crappie, or panfish you're after, Slider has the right size lures for the fish. Slider is the original finesse lure, and it's one of the pros' secret weapons, especially in clear water. Slider's been around for over 35 years because they simply catch fish. They're easy to fish, they're inexpensive, and they'll catch a big one too. Try Slider fishing.
Hey, another nice Kentucky Lake slab. Folks, I'm nationally known outdoorsman Garry Mason, and owner and operator of Adventures Outdoors Professional Guide Service here on Kentucky Lake. I'd like to invite you and your family to come and be a part of beautiful Kentucky Lake with me here at Adventures Outdoors, Garry Mason's Professional Guide Service. You can reach us at telephone number 731-593-5429 or area code 731-693-7770. Or you can also get in touch with us through Buchanan Resort here on Kentucky Lake. Come and let us show you an adventure in the great outdoors at Adventures Outdoors Professional Guide Service. Hello folks, I'm nationally known professional guide Garry Mason. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you, your friends, and your family here to beautiful Buchanan Resort on Kentucky Lake, where we have a full-fledged campground, full-service marina, Mercury dealership, condos for sale, rustic cabins, and the beautiful Annabelle room, all at your disposal. We hope that you'll come and share a day, a week, or even a month here at beautiful Buchanan Resort. You can contact us at www.buchananresort.com. Beautiful Buchanan Resort, family owned and family operated since 1946 here on Kentucky Lake. Chuck, I want to show you a real simple knot that I tie here on Kentucky Lake, and that I try to teach all my customers. It's real simple and real easy to tie, and it's quick. And I've found that not only is it quick, but it's a good strong knot, and it allows me to either vertical fish the Charlie Brewer slider grub or to cast it. And I'll show it to you. It's just a real simple knot. You go through the eye of the hook, and you grab the line with your finger and thumb and just start twisting the Charlie Brewer slider grub. And you want to twist that about 6 or 7 times. Then I catch the line with my finger and I run it right back through the eye of the line. Once I've run it through the eye of the line, I grab it with my thumb and forefinger and pull it down tight.
It's real similar to a clinch knot.
It's real similar to a clinch knot. With a clinch knot, you'd bring it on back through the eye again, but I think this works just as well. And if you'll notice, when you pull that tight, it allows that jig to, that Charlie Brewer slider grub to hang there vertical. And then also when you're casting, it'll come on around the jig head and you can pull it or cast it. But that's a real strong little knot. I've had 5-pound bass caught on Charlie Brewer slider grubs using that knot, and you don't have to worry about that knot coming undone. And it's something that I've taught a lot of kids to tie. So it's a very simple knot, and it really works for me.
We might say a little bit about the equipment we're using. Both of us using spin cast equipment, and basically light to ultra light rods. I've got a short rod here that we make at the Charlie Brewer Slider Company. It's just a 5-foot rod, but kind of an all-around rod for me. I use for bass fishing, crappie, and whatever, and just enjoy fishing with it. And and using 4-pound line. And you might tell the people what you're using.
Well, I'm using a Shimano reel set up, of course, with the P-line, 6-pound P-line, and I've got a 7-foot Lima glass rods that are made out of Woodland, Washington. And I like a 7-foot 2-piece rod because I'm able to cast just a little bit further than I would be with a 5 or a 5.5 foot. But if you've got a rod that you can cast comfortably with and you feel good with and you can handle that rod, then that's what you need to use.
Yeah. And basically we just Garry's took us some of his spots he's caught fish before. I think a little underwater brush, maybe out in this area. Yeah. Water depth is what?
Where you caught that fish was about 4 foot.
So we were just casting out and just retrieving back slowly, and Garry caught one in there, and then this one was caught. So we're on a pattern. I guess it's been good for the last few days.
That's right. We're going to go back and catch another one.
Good.
Chuck, I got a pretty good crappie here.
Tell you what, with that high visibility line, it sure shows up.
Boy, he does.
Good. Where's that?
He's putting up a fight too. I tell you what, anybody thinks crappie won't fight, just had never caught one on a 7-foot ultralight. He is putting up a fight. I tell you what.
On that white and chartreuse tail.
I'm on white and chartreuse, and I forgot to get my net out, so I'm just going to have to lift him up. But
good fish.
Tell you what, I had him. That's a good Kentucky Lake crappie right there.
Now you gonna catch him?
No, I'm gonna fry him.
Okay. Good answer.
Well, we're gonna put him back here in the live well, and you know, I like to be a conservationist, but this is a mighty good sized fish to cook and eat. So
well, also, you know, some of these lakes can get overpopulated if you don't take a few of them out.
We're gonna put some hush puppies and white beans around him.
Okay.
What do you think?
Sure. Maybe right here at the boat. There he is, Garry. That kind of feels good.
Tell you what, he looks like he's pulling pretty good.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. It's a 4-pound line, and I'm using a ultralight rod, but
Tell you what, I'm gonna get out here and sum him up for you.
okay.
Ooh, that was a nice fish. Let him up.
Boy, now there's a fish right there.
Now that's a Kentucky Lake slab, Chuck. That's what we call a Kentucky Lake slab right there. That's a good fish.
Let me turn it around and take a shot.
All right.
Put the grill down. That is a big fish.
That's a good one.
That's a good one there. Now do one.
Chuck, you know, some of the things we're going to be fishing today, we're going to be fishing structure, both man-made and natural structure. And this man-made structure that myself and other people have put in the lake, all it is when we talk about structure, we're talking about probably brush piles that's been brought out here and sunk in the lake, or stake beds. And what a stake bed is, it's usually a bunch of round or square lumber, probably 2.5 inches across. It's driven into the lake with a driver, or some guys do it up on the shoreline with a hammer where the water will come up and be over the stakes when the fish spawn. We're going to be fishing some of that type of stuff. And the way that you put this stuff in is very critical when you go back to find it. And what I mean by going back to find it, how many times have you ever put something out in the lake, like a brush pile or something, and you went back and couldn't find it? And what I mean by a lineup is I'll go out and I'll find a drop-off here on the lake that I really like, and somewhere along that drop-off I'll look up on the shoreline. There may be a house sitting there, and in front of that house is a tree, a single tree, stuff like that that I know probably is not going to move in the next few years. And what I'll do is I'll line that tree up with, say, the front door of a house, or a tree up with a power pole, or something that, like I said, it's not going to move. And then I'll drop my brush pile or put my stake bed out where it's in line with that power pole or that first object and that second object, where I can pull out in the lake in the deeper water, and I can go right toward those two objects and watch my depth finder. And I've lined those two objects up like the front and back sides of a rifle. And I go right at those two objects and watch my depth finder. And when my brush pile comes up on my depth finder, I pitch a marker at it and I can turn around and fish it. So we're going to be fishing a lot of structure today, and that's how we do it here on Kentucky Lake. And I know there's a lot of other people on other lakes that fish structure, and just wanted to share that tidbit with you this morning, and so you know what we're going to be fishing.
How deep water you normally put your structure in for crappie?
It really depends. When I put structure out, I'm probably putting it out in 3 or 4 or 5 foot of water, because I put my structure out in the wintertime when Kentucky Lake is at its winter drawdown.
Okay.
The lake is usually 5 foot lower in the wintertime than it is in the summertime. Once our lake is usually up to a summer pool by April 15th, and that's about the peak of the spawn, or the peak of the migratory run prior to the spawn for our crappie. So those fish are up in that stuff by the time the water gets up. And by putting it out in 3 or 4 foot of water right now, I do two things. Number one, I kind of hide it from other people because it's under the surface of the water. Number two, I know that water is going to be 5 or 6 foot over the top of it when it reaches summer pool around the mid-April.
How about, do you put it on the main river channel or back in sloughs, or you got preference there? Or?
Most of the stuff that I put in on drop-offs, and I put around channel tributaries, and also around drop-offs near the shoreline. Fish really, crappie especially, really migrate well around shorelines and where you got gravel that helps warm up the water temperature. Just a few degrees water temperature can mean a big difference on catching crappie on any given lake. So if you've got pea gravel or gravel that catches that sunlight and tends to warm up and help warm up the water conditions close to where those fish like to migrate to, you've got a great place to catch crappie.
Yeah, what we're going to be fishing for today is pre-spawn crappie, right?
We're going to be fishing for what I call migratory pre-spawn crappie. In other words, these fish they're really not staged up yet, but what happens with crappie is they move out of the deep water, and it takes them about a month to move from the deep water to the spawning ground. And they do this in stages, and they have staging up places, and I've learned some of those staging up places and built other places where they've congregated, but they go just like you and I drive down the highway. Every once in a while you got to stop, either for food or a bathroom break or something, and these crappie do the same thing. They stop to feed up because they know that they're probably not going to eat much during the spawn.
Water temperature now is
about 57 degrees. What we really like to see here on Kentucky Lake is we like to see that 62, 64, 66 degree water temperature. And by the time the water temperature reaches 68 to 70, those fish are going to be right in there spawning. And in a week or 7 or 8 days, they'll really be moving. They'll be moving in and out of this shallow water and staging up in some of these migratory places where they stage up and feed on those forage fish like shad. But, you know, look for good water temperature. Clarity of water is another key that I like real well. If we get a hard rain, if you can go somewhere to a clearer water stream. We've got a real unique situation with Kentucky Lake, as in the fact that all of our western creeks, like Eagle Creek, which we're on here where Buck County Resort's at, they can get pretty muddy here on the Big Sandy embayment, whereas the eastern streams will stay fairly clear because they're spring and gravel bedded creek runoffs, spring fed creeks and stuff like that. So those creeks should stay fairly clear, whereas these over here will muddy up on a rain. So if I come to Kentucky Lake and some of the creeks are muddy, I can go across the lake, and actually we've got two different lake situations in this lake. So
when you're fishing an area, you know, where you've got some structure or a point or whatever, how long does a person need to stay on that in order to check it out? You know, some places got crappie in there and you know right off the bat, and some don't, you know. Do you stay on the move quite a bit until you sort of locate the crappie?
Chuck, what I tell people is you're not always going to catch crappie at every spot that you stop at. However, if you stop at a spot and you catch a crappie, continue to fish there for a little while and kind of fan that area, casting for crappie like I do with slider grubs. I want to fan that area real good and make sure there's not any more there. More than likely, if there's 4 or 5 fish there, I'm going to catch 2 or 3 of them. Once I've caught those fish and I quit getting bites, then I'll pick up and move on. But I pretty much let the fish dictate how long I stay at a place. As long as I'm getting bites, I won't move. But another thing that I do, and especially with these migrating crappie, is I may fish a spot this morning, and then we may go back to it this afternoon to the very same spot. We might catch 2 or 3 fish off of it this morning, catch 4 or 5 fish off of it this afternoon. One thing that crappie fishermen, I think, do more than anybody else is they leave their fish and won't go back to it. Leaving fish on your bed is not a bad thing, but you can actually go back, especially if you've been hung up in that bed a time or two and shook the bed. You can go back to that bed later on in the evening, and those fish will be back in there. And these fish are migrating, so the spot where you caught one this morning has probably got different fish on it this afternoon that's migrated in there after you left. So yeah. Don't be afraid to go back to fish some places that you fished this morning again this afternoon.
Gary, sometimes I notice the time of day, you know, makes a big difference too. Like I've always caught a lot more crappie right at the tail end of the day, you know, when the sun gets down and you got a golden tint on it. They seem to move, even when they've been out, they seem to move up more shallow and get a lot more active. Is that a standard pattern on this lake for crappie? Do they hit better real late, or does it vary during the day?
I think on different days it'll vary during the day. Now, I've had days where I caught fish better in the morning than I did in the afternoon, and vice versa, and I really don't have an answer to your question. There is a period of time, though, that that last hour sometimes can be really good. Fishing in general, especially for predator fish like crappie, bass, and that type of fish, those fish are real aggressive real early in the morning and late in the afternoon. But depending on moon phases and what they're doing, you know, whether or not they're traveling or whether they're staged up in an area can make a big difference. But I think it's just a matter of trying to be there when you can be there and fishing when you can. And I tell people, I've never caught one in the living room. So get out every chance you get and try to go fishing. Yeah. Sooner or later, you're going to luck up on a good day.
Yeah, I know we've all had bad days and had good days, you know. Seem like the bad days, we don't like to remember those, but when we have that one real good trip, I mean, we always remember it. And that's what you got to do. You just got to keep going, and you're going to have some a mixture of trips. You got to enjoy a bit out on the lake, but one of these days you're going to have one of those trips you just keep talking about year after year.
Well, that's right, Chuck. You know, I had a day last year where me and 3 folks that was fishing with me, we kept 66 crappie, and we caught them before 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and about 1:30 those folks said, man, we've caught enough, we've had a big time. Let's head in into the dock. But yeah, you're going to have those magic days where everything just clicks for you and you catch a lot of fish. One thing I tell people is catch what you want, put the rest back, go ahead and fish, but if you only want 10 or 12 fish to eat, you know, and you don't need a bunch in your freezer, just go ahead and throw those back, catch what you want to eat, keep what you want, turn the rest of them back loose for somebody else to catch or for you to catch the next time you're out. It doesn't matter how many fish you catch, you know, the the really great thing about going fishing is getting to be out here in nature, getting out of the office or wherever you might work, and enjoying time both with your family and your friends. The catching doesn't seem to matter a whole lot to most of my clients. They want to catch a few fish, but the main thing is they want to have a great time. And here on Kentucky Lake, you can have a great time just about every day that you go fishing.
Yeah, I know it's a beautiful lake and got all kinds of fish, not only crappie, but other times, you know, you get a lot of bass, big bluegill here. So this is a lake that definitely people need to fish.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, I tell folks all the time that if you're going to come and fish a new lake that you don't know, and I do this also, if I'm going to a new lake like I went to Okeechobee a couple of years ago, I hire a guide wherever I go. Now, I'm a professional guide, and I'm not saying that because I am a guide, but I'm saying that because it gives you the opportunity to learn how the guide's fishing, what he's using, and what his techniques are for catching fish. Now, never ever go back and fish the guide's places. That's a big no-no. It's ethically, it's wrong. You're paying that man for today, and someone else is paying him for tomorrow. Yeah. But if he's a good, reputable guide, he's going to try to teach you the techniques that he's using, the way he's fishing, how he's catching them, and he might even share some areas where you can go fish, you know, and so be good to him, and I guarantee you'll increase your odds for the next 3 or 4 days that you're going to be on any given lake if you'll hire a guide the first day or two that you're here.
Well, Gary, we've had a great trip here on Kentucky Lake around Paris, Tennessee. I appreciate you doing this with me, fishing these slider grubs. We had a great time. And for you folks out there that would like to get a free catalog, we'll be glad to send you one. You know, give us a call at 1-800-762-4701 or go to our website, which is www.sliderfishing.com. But enjoyed it.
Had a great time, Chuck. Enjoyed fishing with you and using slider grubs. You make a great product, and look forward to the next time we can be in the great outdoors together.